Hello and welcome to the Momentum Hackney podcast. We're starting on an exciting experiment to bring you speakers and discussions from local campaigns. We'll try to give you an update on recent developments in Momentum and the Labour Party and advice on how you can get involved in these. And we'll no doubt have one or two talks about global and national policy issues too. If you've got an idea for a discussion or an urge to get behind the microphone and spread the word about something that Momentum supporters could really do with knowing about, then get in touch at mohackpodcast@post.com. That's MOHACK podcast@post.com. This episode recorded on the 19th of April 2019. We speak with Kaz from Unite Union about a recent dispute with Send drivers and escorts in Hackney. I'm joined by Onay Kasab, or Kaz, from Unite Union. He's a Unite regional organiser, and we're going to be talking about the recent driver and passenger escort strikes in Hackney and the dispute that's ongoing on. Kaz has been working with the drivers and the escorts who provide transport for disabled young people in Hackney, some of whom are in dispute over payments for working split shifts. So, Kaz, can you tell me a bit about the dispute and why the drivers have been on strike?
Our members have now taken 2 days of strike action. This follows the employer's unwillingness, and the employer being Hackney Council, their total unwillingness to sit down and negotiate. We balloted our members way back in October of 2018 for strike action. Our members voted yes. That result was given to the employer. And since then, we've been trying to engage the employer in discussion. We've had 3 meetings. If you can call them negotiations, that'll be stretching it a little bit, because we put our claim and they just said no at all 3 meetings. Now, the claim is for compensating our members for working a split shift. So our members will go in, they will do the morning run, finish at 9:30, 9:45, and then have to go home and come back and do the afternoon run for the schools when the schools close. The problem with that is that it costs. People have to get home and come back. Not just money, but time as well. We've got people who told us that they don't actually bother going home between the shifts. They sit in the depot, unpaid, doing nothing until the shift starts again in the afternoon. A number of years ago, people used to be compensated for working split shifts, and Hackney took that away as part of an agreement around something called single status. We think it's about time now that Hackney reconsidered. We make no apology for saying that we are trying to claw that payment back. We think it's unfair that our members shouldn't be compensated for working the split shift. And the important thing is it's about money, and it's about the inconvenience as well. We are not talking about highly paid workers here. On average, we're talking around £22,000 a year if they were working full time. The vast majority are only working 20 hours.
Oh, right. So the drivers are asking for £50 a week compensation dated back to July. On what basis are the council refusing to accept this demand, which doesn't sound like it's an unreasonable amount?
Yes, the amount we're asking for is not a huge amount, and again, I've got no problem saying we are prepared to sit down and negotiate. That figure is a figure that we've come to after looking at another local authority, which is Greenwich. It does pay its staff money for working unsociable hours, split shifts. And so we took it from them as an example. So it shows it can be done. That's the first thing. The council have then said that they don't want to open up the floodgates. They claim that everybody then who works a split shift may well be asking for a payment. Well, that may be the case, or it may not be the case. But at the moment, the only people who have come forward and are willing to take strike action in support of a claim are the members working in this particular service. So I think it's a red herring from the council. They've also claimed that it may open up possible equal pay claims from other employees who don't get a split shift payment. That really is nonsense. The vast majority of staff here are women workers. I'm willing to bet that you're not going to find a predominantly male area that work split shifts that may therefore have some kind of sex discrimination claim against the predominantly women area. So I think that's complete and utter nonsense. And as is the normal case with local authorities at the moment, they've said that they don't have the money to pay for it. Firstly, it's not a huge amount of money. Secondly, we're willing to negotiate. And thirdly, I think it's worth remembering, I am no friend of the Taxpayers Alliance, and I take everything they say with a pinch of salt. But they did reveal recently, and the council haven't denied it, that the Hackney are one of those local authorities in London that have a particularly high number of senior officers on over £100,000 a year. So if they deserve it, and so do our members.
Well, that sounds like quite a disparity between what senior members are earning and what the drivers are earning. Could you tell us a bit about what that kind of compensation would mean to staff? How does that compare to what their general weekly income is?
It would mean a huge amount, despite the sum not being a lot of money for these staff, because they are so low paid. I said most of them don't do more than 20 hours a week. It would make a huge difference. It would actually mean that they might be able to go home in between the shifts. For some who are having to work 2, maybe 3 different jobs a day, just so that they can earn a decent living. It could be the difference between spending some more time maybe with their families, rather than having to do 2 or 3 jobs. Now, I'm no longer surprised when I hear about low-paid public service workers and the number of jobs that they have to do, number of different jobs that they have to do just to earn a living, to be able to pay the rent and the food. And we're not talking about doing 2 or 3 jobs so that they can come up to the average in London. We're talking about survival here for a lot of those people. So it might make the difference between not having to work all the hours in the day and actually having some time to spend with families. And it sounds ridiculous to say it, but it might make the difference between having the money to be able to actually travel home between the shifts. Yeah. So they don't spend all day in the depot. So
I think it was yesterday the government was announcing again, it's amazing claim that we're having record levels of employment across the country. I also saw somewhere that the Office of National Statistics classifies someone as in employment if you're just doing at least 1 hour of work a week. You also mentioned something there about the council being worried about this opening up the floodgates for further cases of people claiming compensation for working inconvenient on split shifts. How prevalent and how common is this kind of way of working becoming? How often do you see this kind of thing in your work as a union organiser? It's part of the whole precarious working environment that we are in. 0-hour contracts, quite rightly, have got a lot of publicity. But what often doesn't get much publicity is the fact that jobs are so low paid that people are having to do 2 or 3, sometimes 4 different jobs in a day. And that is widespread. It's not uncommon. It happens a lot in schools. It's mainly around catering, cleaning, midday meals, supervisors, and people doing the jobs of our SEND workers who have been taking strike action. So yeah, the government has been putting about a lot of figures about so-called record low levels of unemployment, but the reality is it's often precarious, it's often part-time, and it's very often low paid. The fact that those jobs are often insecure as well, and people talk about 0-hour contracts, and it's the insecurity that's the big issue. We've been dealing with another organisation. We've been dealing with Greenwich Leisure Limited, and we've had a number of campaigns there. They have contracts, local government contracts across the country. Something like 2/3 of their staff are on 0-hour contracts. Wow. That's 2/3, and they are the biggest leisure social enterprise in the country, with 2/3 of their staff on 0-hour contracts. And amazingly, they call themselves a worker-led
cooperative, there's not many of the workers at GLL who get a choice as to whether or not they're on a 0-hour contract. So coming back to your question, yes, it is widespread. They can argue about record low levels of unemployment, but the reality is that work is very precarious and predominantly low paid.
So we as a Labour Party in Hackney North, we're part of Hackney Council, which is a Labour-run council. At our last constituency meeting, we passed a motion in support of the drivers' strike. But it's alarming at the same time to hear that a council which is run by predominantly, I think we only have about 3 councillors who are not Labour members. What is it that we can be doing to ensure that our council is doing everything to ensure that people employed by the council are being paid a fair wage and they're not being excluded from being able to actually earn a fair living which they can live off? Are there any other kinds of actions that we can be doing to ensure this? And do you have any sympathy with the difficulties that councillors or other staff might have in trying to end this?
I think the first thing to say is, on behalf of our members, we want to thank those Labour Party members who have passed resolutions, who have put together collections, who have come to the picket line. That support is absolutely invaluable. We've had disputes previously in Hackney before with contractors such as OCS and Kia Cleaning, where Labour Party members again got involved and helped us resolve that dispute. Same thing with APCOA parking. Again, so we thank those Labour Party members, but we just wish that elected councillors showed the same commitment towards communities and workers as those Labour Party members have shown to our members, predominantly low-paid workers, some of the lowest paid workers in Hackney. So the council can make statement after statement, but the reality is that when it comes to doing something about it, the support that we've had has come from rank and file grassroots Labour Party members rather than elected councillors. We are asking that people do contact the mayor, that people do contact councillors in support of our campaign, in support of our dispute. Our members do an extremely important job, and what's been fantastic is the support we've also had from the NEU, the Teachers Union, who have acknowledged that without our members and the job that our members do, ensuring that children get to and from school and home, that their education wouldn't be there, it wouldn't be provided. Teachers do the teaching, but you have to get children to school, and our members do an absolutely invaluable job in ensuring that those children receive an education. As far as the local authority are concerned and arguments around opening the floodgates and money, we will support any group of workers with a just campaign, defending their terms and conditions, or even just taking on an offensive battle, if you like, rather than just defending what they've got, but coming forward and saying we deserve a little bit more. But I don't think the figures show that there are masses of workers on split shifts that are going to bust the bank as far as the council are concerned. And my response to the council as far as budgets are concerned is this. We have gone through and we continue to go through austerity. We're seeing still the impact of austerity, and we'll see the effects of it for many years to come unless something is done very quickly, rather than passing on Tory cuts and Tory austerity, if you like, acting as the little cutters for the big cutters. What we would like local authorities to do is to set legal, balanced, no cuts budgets. And I emphasise that, legal, balanced, no cuts budgets. It can be done by using reserves and by using borrowing, which local authorities can and do at relatively cheap rates, at the same time as coordinating a campaign involving the Labour Party, Labour local authorities, trade unions and communities, to demand that the government gives back to local authorities all the money that it has robbed from local authorities. So there's a strategy there that doesn't require illegality. Mm-hmm. It just requires political will. And how that impacts on our members here, obviously, if local authorities are properly funded, then our members can then be properly paid.
So for listeners who are perhaps maybe not themselves in work or part of a unionised organisation, could you perhaps explain a bit about what you do as a trade union and how this kind of actions, like you've mentioned, can help bring about an end to austerity?
Our aim as a trade union is to organise workers in workplaces so that they can defend their terms and conditions, but also fight for improvements, fight for a decent standard of living. We also want to go beyond that and fight for social and environmental justice as well. And as far as fighting austerity is concerned, we believe that the campaigns that take place in workplaces are absolutely vital because they show the impact. They show what's happening. That's why the passenger services members who have taken strike action are so inspirational. It would have been easy for them to sit back and say, we can't do anything about it. It would have been easy for them to be just emotionally blackmailed. Look, you're doing this job, but what happens if you go out on strike? Who's going to be harmed the most? They are fed that line, just like schools workers in the NHS. But the reality is it's emotional blackmail, and it stops people going out and fighting for what's right, for what they quite rightly deserve. So they are a source of inspiration for us, and we will be using them when we win this campaign, and we are going to win the campaign. We'll be using them as an example of what can be done. Hackney Council are blaming austerity for not being able to pay these workers properly. Well, our workers are taking the necessary action. They're showing what needs to be done in order to get a decent wage. But at the same time, we recognise that local authorities have been hit extremely hard by central government. The focus has been on the NHS, and that's understandable. But local government services are just as vital. What is needed is a coordinated fight back from local authorities to win back that money, and our members will be a part of that. Will be a part of that fight back.
It sounds incredibly, brave of these workers in terms of. I understand that there's support of around 70 schools around the borough. What numbers of those drivers are union members and have been willing to take strike action?
The vast majority of people employed in the service, both the drivers and the passenger assistants, are all members of Unite. And what's been particularly heartening is what's happened on the two picket lines that we've had on the 2 days of strike action. Agency workers traditionally feel under threat when there's strike action because of the nature of agency worker conditions. They can be told, don't come back into work tomorrow. Whereas at least if you're a permanent employee, you have some legal protection. Mm-hmm. What's been heartening for us is the numbers of agency workers who have turned up to work on the picket line, spoken to their colleagues on the picket line, and then not gone into work. And not just not gone into work, but joined the union.
So to be clear for listeners, how are all of the drivers employed directly by Hackney Council, or are they some agency workers?
There's a mix. The vast majority are employed directly by Hackney Council. Right. We're only talking about 10 or 11 members of staff who are employed by the agency. But that 10 or 11 can make a difference as far as the dispute is concerned. Yeah. And to see those people being brave enough not to cross the picket line and actually join the union. And then, while we were on the picket line, I kid you not just saying it for effect, I was present when those members were getting calls from management on their mobile phone saying, come into work. We need you in work. We need you to provide the service. And that's the other important point. It's a valuable lesson that's been learnt by all of those who have taken strike action, which is the impact of their action. And that shows what power people do have when they are organised within a trade union. The council have actually put out a press statement saying that the campaign, the dispute, has had an impact on the service. We don't want to do harm to anybody. But what this does show is that workers do have the power to make a difference when they stand together and take action.
Yeah, so I think I described the workers as brave, but I think perhaps that's really misunderstanding that actually they just really see that there's a need for this, and that they can win by being involved in these organisations. Organising together, it's really heartening that other people who don't have the same employment terms in solidarity haven't crossed over those picket lines. For the people listening, what are the ways that we can help to support this?
Just to come back on a point, I do think you're right to describe them as brave, because they were issued with all sorts of threats before taking strike action. So I think there was a huge element of bravery, but that comes with solidarity when you stand together with your colleagues. The best thing that people can do at the moment, and we have had a lot of support from parents, is for people to be contacting a local authority, to be contacting Philip Glanville, the mayor, and to demand that negotiations take place to settle the dispute. Now, what we're not going to do is be fooled again, to quote the song. We called off 4 days of strike action so that talks could take place through ACAS. And when we turned up, we made clear that we would have to be talking about money. Of course we would. And we wanted the council to be clear about that. And that was the first point in those negotiations. And the first thing that the council said was, they've got no money. So we want negotiations, but what we're not going to do again is call off action on the basis of talks. The council have got to come up with proposals, and that's where we need public pressure. Mm-hmm. We need the public to be getting on, not just parents, but the public generally, everybody who cares about the service, to be getting on to the council. I would say to the mayor, to demand that he instructs officers to sit down and negotiate, and they make the money available for a settlement to take place. Our strike action will impact on the service. What I would prefer is for the council to listen to the community who are demanding a settlement, and for us not to have to take any further action before serious talks take place.
So it sounds like there's quite a lot that we can do. I know that as a constituency in the Labour Party, there's a meeting with Phil Glanville once every month, so we can certainly be going there and taking our questions to him. Is there anywhere that people can go for further information about how the talks are progressing, when strike action might be, if they can come down to picket lines, anything like that?
Yeah, that would be great. And I'm happy for everybody to have my email details. It's onay.kasab, KASAB, at unitetheunion, that's all one word, .org. People can contact me on that for any updates, or if they want to show support. Money is an issue. Our members are taking strike action, and they lose money when they take strike action. So we are also taking collections on behalf of our members. Any cheques can be made payable to Hackney Unite. And again, a huge thank you to Labour Party members who have already donated to that fund. Great.
Finally, if the dispute, how long do you see the dispute going on for, and what feeling is there from workers for keeping on with this?
The feeling is very strong, very, very confident. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll be making preparations again to issue further dates for strike action, and they're likely to be late May, June dates. As soon as we've got those confirmed, we will let people know as quickly as possible. But the council need to be very, very clear. The mood amongst our members is very, very confident. They've already taken 2 days of strike action. They have seen what they can do. They have seen that you can take strike action and you can come back in to work the day after and the world hasn't blown up. It's not disappeared around you. Nothing bad happens to you. In fact, it's the opposite. You come into a workplace the day after a strike, especially one that's been so well supported, such as this one, and you actually come into work feeling more confident that you can actually do something about the workplace. The fact that we've got people joining the union so that they can go on strike sends two messages, if you like. First of all, it sends a message to the council, to the employer, to say this is a dispute that's growing, it's a campaign that's growing, and you need to get together with the trade unions and try and resolve it. But for me, even more important than that, it shows the importance of trade unions, and it shows that people are not scared of, and the word almost becomes a bit of a swear word for some people. People are not scared of militancy. People are not scared of taking militant action. People join trade unions when trade unions are taking action. And to see that happening again in this dispute, even for somebody like me who's been around for a number of years, it's heartening, it's amazing, and again, it's an honour and a privilege to represent low-paid workers who are willing to stand up and do something about it.
Okay, thanks, Onay. I'm sure everybody listening will really want to get involved in this campaign, support it, and hopefully give money to it. I know I certainly will be. And so we'll keep up the pressure, and I'm really sure that we'll be able to win this with enough public support. So thank you for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, just again, a thank you to everybody who supported us so far. It's one of those disputes that I think it is important that we do win, because it can set a really positive example for workers right across the borough, I think. But I just wanted to end again by saying I think our members that have taken action have been absolutely magnificent. I'm absolutely positive we're going to win. And again, a huge thank you to everybody for all your support.
Okay, that's great. So hopefully we'll be able to come back with you for an update in the podcast later on, saying that we've won this strike, but we can only do it with your support and with everybody coming out and really making some noise and putting pressure on Hackney Council about this. So thanks again, Kaz. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. You can keep up to date with the podcast and future episodes by subscribing on iTunes. You can also find us on Spotify and through other mediums. If you like the podcast, please get in touch and tell us what you think, or if you don't like it and you've got some better ideas on what you can do, then please do get in touch at mohackpodcast, one word, at post.com. That's mohackpodcast at post.com. We're keen to get a broad, diverse range of interviewers and voices on the show, so please do get in touch if you're interested. Momentum Hackney meet on the first Tuesday of every month at the Pembury Centre at 7 p.m. It's a great way to find out more about what's going on in the local area. Also coming on up in the month, we've got the Momentum Black Caucus fundraiser at the Pembury Centre at 3 p.m. on Saturday the 27th of April. And on the 13th of May, the Left Book Club will be discussing the Climate Leviathan at the Star by Hackney Downs from 7 p.m. Look forward to seeing you there.